Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shrikrishna's Yogic Vidya, an integrative introduction. All rights reserved with me. No part of this work may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form without the prior written permission from myself, Pravinkumar MORESHWAR Joshi. Now the disclaimers. First, interpretive disclaimer. This essay offers an original interpretive introduction to the concept titled Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shrikrishna's Yogic Vidya as an integrative body of practice and knowledge. It is a creative, scholarly synthesis intended to inspire inquiry and action rather than to assert historical, scriptural, or doctrinal authority. Now, the scientific and practical limits disclaimer. Connections drawn between yogic practices and contemporary scientific disciplines are presented as plausible, evidence informed hypotheses and conceptual bridges. They are not clinical diagnosis, medical advice, or definitive scientific claims. Readers should consult qualified professionals for medical, psychological, or legal guidance. Now, the cultural respect disclaimer. The presentation aims to respect religious and cultural traditions while translating ideas into multidisciplinary frameworks. It does not appropriate or replace the living traditions and communities that sustain these teachings. Now, the disclaimers recap. First, interpretive, not authoritative. Scientific links are conceptual, not prescriptive. Consult professionals for medical or legal matters. Respect living traditions and communities. The AC. Introduction. Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shrikrishna's Yogic Vidya is presented here as a living synthesis, a set of practices, conceptual tools, and relational protocols that aim to cultivate attention, ethical clarity, embodied resilience, and systemic connectivity. This introduction treats Yogic Vidya as both a practical curriculum and a research program that invites cross disciplinary translation. The goal is to make the teaching actionable, testable, and generative for individuals and communities seeking coherent pathways from inner regulation to collective flourishing. The core principles of Bhagwan Yogeshwar's Shrikrishna's Yogic Vidya. Attention as foundational technology. At the heart of Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shrikrishna's Yogic Vidya is disciplined attention. Practices refine selective attention, sustained attention, and meta attention. These capacities are trained through posture, breath regulation, focused awareness, and structured inquiry. Attention functions as a cognitive instrument that shapes perception, memory encoding, and decision making. Embodied regulation. Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shrikrishna's Yogic Vidya emphasizes somatic coherence. Breath and posture practices modulate autonomic balance, reduce physiological reactivity and create a stable platform for higher order cognition. Embodied regulation is not merely symptom reduction, it is the enabling condition for ethical discernment and sustained practice. Ethical calibration. Ethics in Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shrikrishna's Yogic Vidya are operationalized as relational constraints that reduce harm and increase trust. Ethical calibration is taught through concrete commitments, reflective practices, and community accountability. Ethics becomes measurable by changes in behavior patterns, social feedback loops, and the resilience of cooperative networks. Systems orientation. Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shri Krishna's Yogic Vidya frames the practitioner as a node within nested systems: body, family, community, ecosystem. Practices are designed to reveal feedback loops, leverage points, and propagation dynamics so that individual transformation contributes to systemic shifts. Scientific correlates and multidisciplinary bridges. Neuroscience. Focused attention and contemplative practices correlate with measurable changes in neural networks associated with executive control, interception, and emotion regulation. Regular practice strengthens top down modulation and improves signal to noise ratios in cognitive processing. Physiology. Breath based techniques influence heart rate variability and vagal tone, which are biomarkers of adaptive regulation. Postural alignment and movement practices optimize musculoskeletal efficiency and proprioceptive feedback, reducing chronic stress load. Behavioral science. Small, repeated practices create habit loops that compound into durable behavioral change. The design of practice sequences in Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shri Krishna's Yogic Vidya leverages cue, routine, reward structures to scaffold new patterns while minimizing cognitive friction. Complex systems and network theory. Communities practicing Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shri Krishna's Yogic Vidya can be modeled as adaptive networks. Local changes in behavior and communication protocols can cascade through social ties, producing emergent properties such as increased cooperation, shared norms, and collective resilience. Pedagogy and learning science. Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shri Krishna's Yogic Vidya uses spaced repetition, graduated challenge, and multimodal feedback to accelerate skill acquisition. Learning is scaffolded from concrete sensory motor tasks to abstract ethical reasoning, ensuring transfer across contexts. Action framework. First, micro practices daily. 2 minutes centering, a brief breathe and attention routine to stabilize the nervous system. Postural reset. 3 posture checks distributed through the day to restore alignment and interoceptive awareness. Second, Miso practices weekly. Guided inquiry session, a structured reflective practice that integrates ethical dilemmas with somatic sensing. Skill rehearsal, focused practice on a single technique with peer feedback. Third, macro practices quarterly. Community retreat, an intensive period for deepening practice, testing group protocols, and mapping social dynamics. Action projects, community led initiatives that apply Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shrikrishna's Yogic Vidya principles to local problems. Measurement and iteration. Define simple, reliable metrics for attention, stress reactivity, social trust, and cooperative outcomes. Use short cycle experiments to test interventions, collect data, and iterate. Emphasize reproducibility and transparency in methods. Connectivity exploratory. Designing for propagation. Create low friction entry points for newcomers. Modular learning units for diverse learners, and mentorship pathways that preserve fidelity while allowing adaptation. Use digital tools to map networks of practice and to visualize how local changes propagate. Ethical network governance. Establish clear norms for consent, data stewardship, and cultural integrity. Governance structures should be lightweight, distributed, and accountable, enabling communities to adapt without centralizing authority. Transdisciplinary collaboration. Invite partnerships across neuroscience, public health, education, urban planning, and ecology. Frame research questions that are both scientifically tractable and socially meaningful, such as how attention training affects collaborative problem solving in teams. Conclusion and call to action. Bhagwan Yogeshwar Shrikrishna's Yogic Vidya, as introduced here, is a pragmatic and principled program for cultivating inner clarity and outward connectivity. It is simultaneously a personal practice and a research agenda. The invitation is simple: adopt a micro practice today, test its effects this week, and bring one person into a shared practice circle this month. Through disciplined attention, embodied regulation, ethical calibration, and systems thinking, individuals and communities can generate measurable improvements in well being and collective capacity. Practical next steps. Begin with a 2-minute centering practice each morning for 7 days. Track one simple metric such as perceived focus or calm on a daily scale. Convene a short peer session after 2 weeks to share observations and refine practice. This approach treats Bhagwan Yogeshwar Sri Krishna's Yogic Vidya as an actionable, testable, and connective body of knowledge that bridges ancient techniques and contemporary science. It is an invitation to experiment responsibly, measure honestly, and scale compassionately. Thanks for listening to the essay.